Greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. The Association of Italian Canadian Writers, the AICW, is pleased to present the Books and Biscotti Literary Series Open Mic. My name is Delia De Santis, and I'm pleased to co-host with the 8 Zoom B&B with Annalisa Panati and Pia Spadafora. If you missed the events held last year and in January, February, or March, you can watch them on YouTube at AICW Canada. We acknowledge that this land on which we are gathered today is part of the ancestral land of the Chippewa, Ottawa, and Potawatomi peoples, referred to collectively as the Anishinaabe. It is through the connection of the Anishinaabe with the spirit of the land, water, and air that we recognize their unique culture, traditions, and values. Together as treaty people, we have a shared responsibility to act with respect for the environment that sustains all life, protecting the future for those generations to come. Today, we will listen to 6 distinguished writers, all members of the AICW. Lucia Gagliese, Silvia Fiorita Smith, Carole Giangrande, Luigi Spadari, Emma Pivato, and Sante Viselli.
A reminder, please remain muted during the entire event and to turn off your video. Vi ricordiamo di rimanere in modalità silenziosa per tutta la durata dell'evento e di spegnere il vostro video. You can type a question using the chat at any time during the readings. We will read them out during the question period at the end. Potete però sempre scrivere le vostre domande o commenti nella chat che leggeremo dopo la fine delle letture.
Hello, everyone. Without further ado, I'd like to begin the session with Lucia Gagliese, who joined us today from Toronto. Is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you to the organizers for giving me this time and for all of you for zooming in to listen to me read. I'm going to be reading from a story that I just had come out. I don't know if it'll show up or not. And Best Canadian Stories of 2021, put out by Biblioasis. The story itself is called Through the Covet Glass. It's structured as journal entries. A woman who is a healthcare worker, she's a psychologist, and she's living with COVID. And so she's writing a journal, and I'm just going to read you a few parts. The first one, March 12th, 2020, Canada, 1 death, 117 cases. Quarantining alone as of this afternoon, as of 4 hours ago, when my plane landed, bringing me home to Toronto. I dropped off my suitcase, set up a sanitization center in the foyer, sanitizer, disinfectant, paper towels. I went to the grocery store. I didn't know it wasn't allowed, that I shouldn't leave my condo, not even groceries. What if I've spread contagion? Suitcase unpacked, laundry started, groceries disinfected, bra off, pajamas on. Now what? Daily quarantine plan. 1, work. 2, rewatch Cary Grant's filmography. 3, cook, bake. 4, exercise. 5, read. 6, housework. 7, call ma, maybe every other day. 8, contact one friend, Lori, Patty, Kat, Hada, Bay. Ready. Today's movie, Alice in Wonderland. The next entry, day 15, 66 deaths, 4,682 cases. Every morning I read the statistics, but they don't tell the story. Humanity is in the singular, in my colleagues waving silly goodbyes at the end of Zoom meetings, in my patients, healthcare workers themselves, starting sessions with relief at avoiding infection for another week. In Lori, texting a video of the Muppets singing with a little help from my friends. In my niece, hugging herself as a proxy. In Ma, reading page after page of obituaries in the Italian newspapers, seeing her family, her children, herself in each one. Today's movie, The Awful Truth. Day 25, 520 deaths, 16,563 cases. 1 pound chicken, thighs. 1 onion, chopped, I used 2. 1 clove garlic, chopped, I used 2. 1/3 cup ketchup, 2.5 tablespoons Worcestershire sauce, 2.5 tablespoons water, 2.5 tablespoons A1 sauce. Nico says I can substitute molasses or soy sauce. Soy sauce it is. 1 tablespoon sugar, brown for a bit of molasses. 1 tablespoon cider vinegar. Cary Grant's slow-baked chicken from a vintage celebrity cookbook. It's simple. Chicken, onions, garlic into the baking dish. Combine everything else into a sauce. Pour it over the chicken. Bake at low heat. Nico and I picked a day, coordinated cooking times. Oh my God, I text. It smells so good. I told you. My stomach's grumbling. How much longer? Patience. We each set our own table with a lace tablecloth and our best china and crystal. The tablecloths were my nonna's once. Mine is ivory, Nico's white. We rarely use them, but tonight has the hum of a holiday. We dress for dinner, laughing at the idea. Nico wears a clip-on bow tie and black suit, the closest he has to a tuxedo. I don my 1950s cocktail gown, black with red roses, bateau neckline, cinched waist, flared skirt. We're barefoot and laughing, imagining Cary Grant shaking his head in disapproval at our fashion faux pas. We position our laptops so we seem to sit across from each other. We mix champagne cocktails. The chicken is moist, tender, falls off the bone. The savory sauce has just a little heat. The caramelized onions melt in our mouths, sweet, soft, luscious. We reminisce about the cruise we took before cruising became a death sentence. How we pretended we were Cary Grant and Deborah Carr. We raise our glasses. If everything goes right, I begin, quoting our favorite scene. In 6 months, you have a date. Where, Nico grins. You pick the place. The top of the CN Tower in 6 months, if it's safe. It'll be safe and we'll be together in person, healthy. Hold the thought, hold the thought. Watch party with Nico, an affair to remember. Endless month 2, 5,081 deaths, 63,215 cases. 1 package yeast dissolved in lukewarm water. Salt, not too much. Water, enough for a good dough. 3 handfuls of flour. Nonna's handfuls, so 3 3/4 handfuls. Mix wet into dry. Good. Now knead. I can almost hear Nonna say. Roll, fold, stretch the silky dough, coaxing the gluten. Nonna, tell me about the Spanish flu. You must have been scared, only 16 years old. Knead harder. I hear her voice in my head. I remember your story about the very sick, the hopeless, taken to the field at the edge of the village, waiting on cots to die. Who did you lose? Not that hard, or it won't rise. I have so many questions, so many things I wish I knew, I wish you told me. Did you forget the salt? I did not forget the salt, Nonna, only forgot it that one time. 32 years you've been gone. Tell me how I get through this, that I will get through this. Without salt, it'll taste like straw, or un sapore di paglia, as my nonna would have said. There's enough salt. My hands ache. Your hands were bigger, stronger than mine. Long fingers, rounded nails, arthritic knuckles, veins raised like deep, dark rivers. Almost there. Keep kneading. Your hands guided me across busy streets, protected me in crowds, comforted me from your last hospital bed. Good. Now shape it. I smooth olive oil onto the rounded dough. It's warm from the work of my hands. Cover it. Leave it to rise. Be patient. Every year, my hands look more like yours. Today's movie, Topper. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Lucia. It was really an excellent piece. We're gonna move on to Silvia Fiori.
Thank you so much for having me as well. I will be reading some poetry from my book launched in May. I don't know if you can see it, but it's called Figs Beneath the Snow, and it was published by Oxygen Publishing of Montreal. My first poem is called For Joyce Echequan in Joliet. I wrote the following about an Indigenous woman, Joyce Echequan, who died in a Joliet, Quebec hospital in 2020. Her cell phone camera captured her last moments as she broadcast how healthcare workers hurled racist insults toward her. So this is called For Joyce Echequan. As I lay dying, my last moments captured by a camera, you will have to see that I was a victim of history. It sealed my death. The final words I heard over my anguished cries were not learned overnight. They have been uttered through the ages, a way of keeping us in our place, dehumanizing people not really seen as human, so easily dismissed, pushed into corners where invisible, we might just melt away into oblivion. Make us out to be unworthy of dignity. Long before you came, we had a story, a language carried from one generation to the next. Our mothers and grandmothers held us close. No one holds me now. I am dying not alone. I have invited in the world to be witness to the story you have erased. You have obliterated all my past, my love, my life, but not my spirit. It is captured as I lay dying, reveals the truth that hatred lies thick and heavy like storm clouds about to burst. Yet you pretend nothing hangs over you. It is not just one to blame for what happened to me. It is systemic, the root of which reaches beneath all the ugly layers you have covered with lies. Lies to make you feel like you are doing right by us. I am gone, my breath stilled, my image forever captured, haunting your comfort and complicity. My story is not finished. You will find it written on the hearts of each of my motherless children. May they grow to disturb the rampant racism that has robbed them of me. May they tell my story without tears, with pride. May they live as I did not die, in peace. The next poem was written when it became clear that the pandemic was here for a while, and it was becoming increasingly difficult for me to remain patient and optimistic about the future. I decided that resigning myself to waiting with hope would give me greater peace of mind. I could face each day with less anxiety. So I call this surrender. Peace, draped like a comforting shawl, a bowl of chicken noodle soup, sips of cool water gliding down a parched throat, an inner quiet, release from chaos, jumbling thoughts, racing mind, surrender. Sadness overcomes you. It is distressing, but not dangerous. No lasting harm, a time to sit and let it run its course. A gift to dabble in nothing. Protect your spirit. Hold it gently in your hands. White flag above your heart, a wise resignation, not beaten, a lull in the fight. Breathe, unlock the spaces clenched with fear. Trust, embrace each moment as it passes. See strength in non-resistance, power in letting go. You will rise again. Let life be life. My next poem is a tribute to the women that were massacred at the École Polytechnique in Montreal in 1989, and it's called Snow Angels. Like silent snow angels encased in a Christmas water globe, they fell alone, side by side, snatched from lovers, embracing them with gentle arms, entwined in webs of family and friends, raucously laughing at disco bars and sidewalk cafes, dreamy strolls on campus through all the changing seasons, the crunch of autumn leaves forever silent, the frosty vapor of their breath dancing in the chill of winter no more. And my last poem is written because I always have a very hard time with the month of November. I don't like it. It's always very dreary and gray. And I thought if I wrote a poem about it, that maybe it would make me like it more. So it's called November Trees. I see the trees this early November morning. The snow falls gently from a familiar gray-white sky. They stand like dark and lonely structures, stripped down to their barest essence, every branch revealed, its bend and curve now seen. Where once its foliage hid this other simple beauty, I think of what we're like when our brilliance is uncovered, when we no longer wear the fullness that hides what we are really made of. This temporary, superficial skin we live in that is judged, criticized, loved, and hated, when really underneath it all, we stand like trees in November with nothing left to hide. Thank you so much for your attention. I really enjoyed sharing that with you.
Thank you so much for this reading, Silvia. Really strong and powerful poems.
Thank you.
So, Carole Giangrande, it's your turn.
I'd like to thank the AICW for sponsoring this event. I'm speaking to you from Toronto in Etobicoke on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee people, where I honor this country's first poets and storytellers. I'm going to read some poems written during the pandemic. These are from my forthcoming chapbook, which is called The Frailty of Living Things. The first poem is called Omen. Just when we need it least, more random death. Some raptors crossed the Rubicon, spattered its banks with mayhem. Gray-white flecks, a plump dove slammed apart at 200 clicks an hour by a peregrine falcon's aerial attack. And you wonder at the power of a blow that could fracture that placid body, tidy and complete. And stunned in this time of fear, you say to yourself, who's safe? When terrible warnings shatter the air, viral hatred spat from the mouths of human predators, you're willing to cut the peregrine some slack for her lack of moral sense and thoughtless dining choices. And you realize in humbled awe that it was never given to you to see into the heart of peril, only to understand that you are no wiser than the ancients as you gaze with their eyes at every trouble, past and to come, how one melts into the other. In the wild infinity of death, reach out and touch those feathers soft with dread. Feel in them the burial ash of Vesuvius on a city, on this world. On a more cheerful note, this poem is called Garden. I hope for Eden with nothing forbidden, for grace because flowers matter, because the nectar of peonies enfolds the humble ant with love. Lavender captures the honeybee, and mystery sweetens the cinnamon haze of dianthus, where I fall to the ground on my knees. I am looking for hope because roses intoxicate the living world, and not a single purple iris made the evening news. And if I could live with the flowers, I too might grow towards sunlight, away from a nightmare that cannot stop repeating. And who knows, in some lost heaven, I might meet my mother, whose garden kept her sane. Apart from DNA, it was the one precious thing we had in common, but that was enough. Her garden gave me everything that mattered. Words for the scent of lilacs, for the glory of the bud about to open. I'm a birder, so this prose poem is a description of something that actually happened. We have come to see the slaty-backed gull, a dark-winged visitor from Asiatic Russia, who every morning at 10 a.m. goes fishing in this rocky creek on the western edge of Toronto, in a park tucked into the end of a warm September. We are all strangers, enacting the liturgy of social distancing, the ritual dance of leave space and step aside. Binos and camera gear in hand, we are metal tentacled, inching crab-like along the rocky ridge, longing for the beauty of the singular creature that has brought us here. Respect for the winds that have borne it, for the gift of peace in this hour, for this moment in the still eye of the hurricane, in which time and happenstance allow us rest, and what we hear is silence. Some of us sit on the rocks, hovering still as breath, and some of us climb down boulders into the sand to be close to the vagrant spirit of this creature. And some of us gaze downward on the slope and ponder in awe what comes to us unbidden. Later, we drive home in the stillness of lengthening shadows, as lost as this drifting messenger dipped in the sky. And my final poem was written on the day I got my first vaccination. It's called Nurse. Sunlight peers through her mask, her shielded face. Gentle words unearth my own, the way a trowel loosens the soil in early spring. Its hesitant life of sparrows, shoots, buds. Her eyes are milky dawn, that shade of blue. Do you have allergies? Do you live alone? Side effects of the shot are mild. Her slight pinch begins to erase the solitude of a lost year. First stranger spoken to in all that time. First to speak to me. Words alive with kindness push through the hard ground of sorrow. Outside, gardens awaken into spring as they open snowdrops, crocuses blue as eyes. Thank you.
Thanks, Carole. Thanks, such vivid and suggestive poems. Thanks to all our first three readers. There are some comments in the chat. Please use the chat and keep writing your comments or question. We're gonna pause for an announcement here. Over to you, Annalisa.
The announcement is the following: a Zoom event dedicated to Venera Fazio's memory, with the prize winner reading their winning poems, will take place on January 23rd, 2022, from 2 to 4 p.m. Montreal time. The event will be hosted by Delia De Santis, Silvia Farsaperla, and Giovanna Riccio. Stay tuned for more information. Over to you, Maria Pia.
Thanks, Annalisa. Let's go back to our readers. We are going to listen to Luigi Spadari. Luigi, welcome. Where are you joining us today?
I'm in Mirabel, Quebec.
Quebec.
I'm still at work, and sometimes my connection is missing. Okay, so I prefer to tell you, and I will read in French. Like you know, I present in English, but I'm a French speaker, and I have written. I hope most of you understand French, and I've written something called, I think it's like a flash fiction about experience in COVID, and it's about my father that is dead in June, and everything, something about that. Okay, and it helps me pour le deuil, là, ça m'a beaucoup aidé. Donc, je l'ai appelé ça une absence prolongée. On me prévient à l'accueil de la résidence dont mon père est en quarantaine, car il revient d'un séjour de 3 semaines à l'hôpital. Ce sont les règles sanitaires. Il n'est pas chanceux quand on vient tout juste d'alléger les restrictions et les résidents peuvent enfin retourner manger à la cafétéria. Je regarde mon père et il a encore maigri. Il te reste encore 2 semaines en isolement, papa. Ah, je n'ai pas faim, je n'ai pas d'énergie, ça passe pas. C'est normal que tu manques d'énergie, tu ne manges presque pas de protéines. Tu prends juste une soupe et des fruits pour le dessert. Ben, pour dîner, j'ai mangé un peu de viande aujourd'hui comme tu préparais. Il me regarde pour que je complète la phrase comme à l'accoutumée. Tu veux dire du bœuf bourguignon? Oui, c'est ça. C'est drôle, je ne me souviens jamais comment ça s'appelle. C'est une autre journée où mon père a besoin de se faire remonter le moral. Je lui parle alors de notre projet de consigner par écrit toutes les histoires qu'il me raconte sur sa jeunesse en Italie, car depuis quelque temps, cette partie de sa vie lui revient souvent à la mémoire. Peut-être parce qu'il regarde maintenant presque exclusivement les émissions italiennes à la télévision. Papa, cet été, je vais avoir du temps et je pourrai t'enregistrer. Tu pourras me raconter encore comment vous éleviez le verre à soie dans ton village. C'est quand même incroyable. Je n'aurais jamais pensé connaître ça un jour. Ce n'est pas la première fois qu'il s'exprime ainsi avec moi. Malgré cela, je demeure encore surpris par ses paroles. Je n'aurais jamais pensé connaître ça un jour. Il a quand même connu la Deuxième Guerre. Son père et son frère étaient prisonniers de l'armée allemande. Il est resté à 10 ans le seul homme de la famille. En plus, ses parents ont vécu à l'époque où la grippe espagnole s'est étendue sur la planète et on aurait fait, semble-t-il, environ 50 millions de morts. Il me semble que lorsqu'on a vécu ça, on peut s'attendre à n'importe quoi de la vie. Papa esquisse un sourire et ses yeux s'illuminent. Il croit maintenant comprendre pourquoi son père avait peu connu ses parents. C'est parce qu'ils étaient probablement morts de la grippe espagnole autour des années 20. Depuis quelques semaines, la vaccination va bon train. Mon père garde l'espoir de reprendre des activités avec ses amis de la résidence. Toutefois, ce que nous avons vécu depuis le début de la pandémie nous a appris qu'il serait insensé de tenir pour acquises les prévisions sanitaires du moment. Déjà 1 heure que l'on se parle. Notre temps ensemble est écoulé. Le regard de mon père est profond et touchant. Depuis le décès de ma mère, il y a 5 ans, nous nous sommes enfin réconciliés pour de bon. Quelques jours plus tard, nos rêves communs se sont éteints, comme un feu de Bengale l'après-midi du 22 juin. Un matin, pour me sentir moins seul, j'ai fait une petite recherche sur Internet et j'ai calculé que depuis la naissance de mon père en 1931, il y a eu environ 5 milliards d'êtres humains qui sont décédés sur la planète. Je ne suis donc pas le seul à vivre un deuil. Dès lors, je me dis que je n'ai pas à être surpris par la mort de ceux que j'aime, ni par la mienne qui viendra assez tôt. Elle fait partie de la vie. Thank you.
Thanks, Luigi. That was great. Emma Pivato from Edmonton.
Yes. Let me see. Here I am. I am going to read to you from the 9th volume of my Claire Burke mystery series. Claire is the mother of a teenage daughter who has many challenges, including blindness and quadriplegia. And just 2 years ago, she had, by big surprise, twins. So she's been between the twins and the pandemic, she's been kind of ground to a halt and stuck at home. But still, she carries on. She had been supervising a home for 3 adults with various disabilities until the twins were born. And she's still very close to the residents. Recently, one of them, Mavis, who also is in a wheelchair and quadriplegic, was killed when she was out for a walk by a hit and run driver. She was killed and her assistant pushing the wheelchair was left with a pretty bad concussion. Claire is determined to find the killer. One clue leads her to a mechanic in Red Deer who happens to be an expert at fixing Corvettes, and it was a Corvette that killed Mavis. Claire convinces her friend Valerie to take her own Corvette there for Rod to look at, since her Edmonton mechanic has not been able to remedy the annoying problem that she's having with the transmission slip. Once they arrive at the Red Deer, just a minute, oh, come on. Once they arrive at the Red Deer garage, Rod is able to fix the glitch in the transmission quite easily, since he knows exactly what to look for. And Claire then talks to him and the garage owner, Andy Sutton, about Mavis and the accident. They both get defensive, saying that they had nothing to do with it. And Claire and Valerie leave shortly afterwards. And now I will start the actual reading. Well, Claire said, once they hit the highway, how do the gears sound to you now? Great, Valerie replied. I can't believe it was such an easy fix. You can bet that I'm going back to that mechanic in Edmonton to tell him what I think of his work. They sailed along the road peacefully, enjoying the nice fall day and this brief break from their domestic duties. Claire glanced at a passing sign and suggested, slow down and make the right turn up ahead, Valerie. We can take the secondary highway back to Edmonton and enjoy some different sights. Valerie just had time to slow and swerve onto Highway 2A. Will this take us much longer, she asked. Maybe half an hour, but it will be worth it. And if you have time, we can stop at Siding 14 and taste some of their new craft beer offerings and maybe buy some to bring home. Sounds like a plan, Valerie said, grinning naughtily. She kept looking back through the driver's mirror though, and Claire finally asked why. There's a truck behind us, she said, and I'm pretty sure it's the same truck that was behind us on the main highway. Oh, well, Claire joked. Maybe he's going to the same place we are. Maybe we can have a beer together. It's good to feel relaxed for a change, Claire said to herself. I can't even remember the last time I felt this way. But just then she tensed, her neck prickling, and she glanced back. The truck that had been following them was roaring towards them. Valerie, look out, Claire yelled. Valerie glanced back and clenched the wheel in horror, gunning the motor. They were approaching a low bridge that crossed a narrow part of the Saskatchewan River. Just then the truck hit the rear of the car, jamming it towards the low railing. Valerie jerked the wheel to the left and pressed even harder on the accelerator. They grated along the rail on two wheels, searing the passenger side of the car as they went. The 2020 mid-engine C8, the model that Valerie was driving, was reported to be the fastest Corvette in history, able to travel a quarter mile in under 11 seconds. Claire watched as Valerie played the gears with a cool hand and a deadly focus on the road ahead. They managed somehow to make it off the bridge, but there was a steep hill ahead and the Corvette was starting to slow down. Also, there was an ominous sound in the transmission, and Claire imagined that the collision had done some damage. The truck behind them had backed off once it knocked them into the rails, but now it speeded up again and jammed them hard on the driver's side of the bumper. This time there was no escaping, and the car hurtled over the edge of the cut bank on the side of the hill and flipped, landing on the passenger side against a clump of trees halfway down the embankment. The front and side airbags deployed, and the built-in pretensioners automatically adjusted the seatbelt tension to the optimal position for impact. But this could do nothing to take away the force of the impact itself. Oh, Valerie, are you okay? Claire gasped when she was able to talk. Her voice came out in a harsh whisper because of the pressure on her chest from the airbags. There was no reply, and Claire tried to turn towards her friend, but she was pinned down by the airbags and helpless. Finally, she heard a soft moan. Claire turned her head painfully and saw that Valerie was in an even worse position than her. The airbags were forcing her against the inside armrest, and her breath was coming in short gasps. Claire looked around desperately, wondering what to do, what she could do. Just then, there was a hard rap on Valerie's window, and Claire saw a strange sight through the mist that seemed to be clouding her eyes. It took her almost a minute to take in the image before she could properly process it. And even then, her mind wanted to rebel. A cowboy On a horse with a cell phone to his ear? This doesn't make sense. I must be seeing things, was all she could think. Once she realized they were not alone, all Claire's remaining will to stay awake deserted her, and she sank into a semi-conscious state, only vaguely aware of various shouts and the whine of a saw. Then she felt a rush of cool air against her face. The noise from the saw increased, and the car was now shuddering violently back and forth. Suddenly, the noise and the jarring stopped, and Claire heard a loud snap and a scraping sound as the driver door was wrenched away. Then the airbags were punctured, and after that, someone in a white lab jacket reached in and was talking to Valerie and checking her over carefully with probing fingers. A brace was placed around her neck, and she was then slowly eased out of the car. She must be alive at least, Claire said to herself, and passed out again. When she next woke up, she was being transferred onto a gurney. Where am I, she asked, as she felt the gurney moving beneath her. University Hospital, Edmonton, was the brief reply. My husband, was all Claire could think to say. He has been notified. Claire closed her eyes again and thought, oh boy, I just know what he's going to say about this. However, she soon felt the sharp prick of a needle as a strong sedative was administered, and she did not have to worry about Dan's reaction just yet. Thank you.
Thanks, Emma. That was great. Very realistic way of describing the scenes. Let's move on to our last reader for today, Sante Viselli. Sante, welcome.
Thank you very much. I am, oh, sorry.
I believe you are from Winnipeg, right?
From Winnipeg, right, correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much to all of you, to all my old friends and to the new ones. And thank you to the association to give me this opportunity to read a couple of my poems. The language in which I write is French. So, merci à tous. Aujourd'hui, je vais vous lire deux poèmes d'un recueil inédit qui porte le titre Aux lisières 2, un titre assez énigmatique, que j'espère publier bientôt dès que j'aurai trouvé une maison d'édition. J'ai dédié ces deux poèmes à mes deux merveilleux petits-enfants qui s'appellent Valentina et Pascal. Voilà, ce sont deux poèmes qui sont vers la fin du recueil. Le premier poème porte le titre « Pensée en route, point de suspension, dans l'autobus, point de suspension, vers, point de suspension ». C'est vers finalement l'université où je travaille. Donc le matin dans l'autobus, au lieu d'écouter les gens, je médite, je cogite. Sur la route nappée de trous, vers le lieu de savoir ruminé, des malades de reconnaissance cherchent à se faire valoir aux lisières de l'ignorance, du fanatisme et de la crainte et du désespoir. Combien de fois tu t'es demandé, le ciel le matin est-il plus pur que le soir? C'est peut-être pour ça qu'il est rouge de violence, de passion et de sang. Noirâtre, parfois violet, sur un fond rose tendre et séduisant. Après une nuit d'exil dans les terres de l'inconscient, du fort intérieur du mystère, dans les bras d'une amante éphémère, capricieuse et sans désir. Se lever à 5 heures du matin, surprendre Aurore qui évite impatiente le premier rayon, fatiguée de se sauver de l'amoureux violeur, le soleil baffré de vantardise et d'arrogance meurtrière. Il fut Dieu glorieux pendant longtemps dans toutes les latitudes, c'est que l'on n'avait pas découvert sa nature véritable et sa faiblesse. Il a de plus en plus de mal à se lever à présent, à renouveler la terre, à honorer ses promesses. C'est sans doute le Manitoba et sa léthargie de 6 mois qui empêche Aurore de resplendir dans le bleu Elle menace d'amoureuse spirituelle l'or du soleil. Sans manteau, elle a froid. Le cheveu fou de grâce et ses rêves pareils. Ses doigts de rose transformés en glaçons, durs et cristallins comme le rire d'Osiris, avant de mourir assassiné dans une ruelle de service fermée au trafic des drogues. Mais le rire des enfants de Valentina de Pascal détruit les symboles contradictoires, les cauchemars et ses fantômes, envahit leur corps fasciné de féerie et de désir, et leur nuit se peuple d'océans et de nuages blancs. Entre l'écorce et l'arbre, l'enclume et le marteau, y a-t-il un juste milieu pour bien juger l'existence, pour s'abreuver aux mêmes extrémités du spectrum, comme si entre la vie et le rêve, il n'y avait que la mer. Le car s'arrête, les portes s'ouvrent, le masque du savant couvre sa cécité, achève la sépulture d'une autre pensée. Il ira tout droit rallumer sa voix. L'histoire lui dira encore une fois que la seule certitude est celle du cœur. Le deuxième poème que je souhaite lire aujourd'hui est le dernier poème du recueil qui porte le titre « Fermons une autre page, point de suspension, aux lisières, point de suspension ». Fermons une autre page, oublions un autre péché, une autre transhumance, aux lisières de tout ce que l'amant blanc vient de rédiger, des feuilles mortes gribouillées en cachette, des labyrinthes qui hantent le présent, des exilés malades de rage et d'espérance. Scrivo la rabbia dell'esilio e dell'amore dei miei, è nel buio che ritrovo la via. Il buio mi invita ad essere cauto, a cercare la ragione per abbattere le trappole dell'orgoglio, la paura, l'arroganza, il pericolo del cuore che non molla, cuore che tace e crolla sotto il peso dell'amore. I vostri occhi mi seguono nel buio, all'ombra degli eletti libri, mesto come un cane abbandonato dopo l'incendio. Guardo per terra per paura di inciampare i miei sentimenti, alle lacrime, alle trappole del dolore. I vostri vestiti sanno di mare e di poesia, raccontano il sapore dell'estate, un grido d'eleganza alla mia mediocre esistenza, ai 1000 granelli di baci e di sospiri che rivolgo impotente al blu sovrastante. J'aimerais recréer le monde dans un excès de misanthropie, ironie du sort et de ma morgue, mais mes haillons m'empêchent de me déshabiller. Le corps est fatigué, mais le cœur bat encore. Un peu trop vite peut-être. N'importe. Il est à vous, mes amours. Parez vos désirs à l'appel des rêves, si réels soient-ils. Dans mon jardin, des feuilles vertes, bientôt rouges et jaunes, attendent vos sourires, même vos larmes et vos soupirs. Ne rompez pas vos lisières. Elles sont bien ancrées sur le fond de ma mer. Gardez-nous dans vos attraits, dans votre soif de beau et de bonheur. Veillez sur nous dans nos prières. Merci.
Thanks, Sante. That was really, really powerful. And I really appreciated the passage from French into Italian and then again French. So there are a lot of comments in the chat. I will forward to each readers the whole chat. If there are no questions, I'm going to thank you anyone for joining us today. Thanks to our technical hosts, Annalisa Panati and Delia De Santis. Thanks also to Licia Canton, who volunteered behind the scene. This free event on Zoom was brought to you by the Association of Italian Canadian Writers, which is run by a group of volunteers. We welcome donation at any time. Please go to AICW.ca to donate and to find out more about our activities. And I'm going to turn off very quickly to Annalisa.
I'm looking at Maria Pia if there are any questions, but I don't think so. Only many words of appreciation for our readers. So I would just conclude the event and thank you again, thank all the reader. Grazie a tutti di essere stati con noi. Grazie ai lettori, agli scrittori lettori per aver condiviso le loro bellissime parole. Grazie Maria Pia, Delia, e buonanotte a tutti, buona serata per chi si è connesso al Canada.